Hey guys, welcome back to the What About AI podcast. I'm Sean Boyce,
I'm James Perkins.
and the topic that we've got for this episode is AI's impact on the industry of finance, which is one that we know all too well. We have
Near and
significant,
dear to our
yeah,
hearts.
significant industry expertise between us. So, as usual, before we dive in, I'm going to throw out some stats at you. So, what we've got here is in terms of banking operations, because we're talking about finance, we're talking about banking, we're a bunch of other combinations of that as well too, but greater than 70% of the operations in banking expected to largely be automated relatively recently. And that includes things like loan processing, fraud detection, risk assessment, and a whole bunch of others. Talk about more of those as well too. Hundreds of thousands of Wall Street jobs, so potentially at risk and potentially to be cut within the next few years, also due to AI. And then just the vast majority of finance operations having significant potential to be automated by AI, the way the technologies are capable of today. Obviously, that's likely to improve from there. I think part of what we want to talk about more is what this is expected to look like for people in the industry. Obviously, we've worked in it, so we're going to share some of what we've seen and then also what we see coming. So, you want to lead us off?
Yeah, I think it's ripe for automation. I mean, in my experience, and I've been in the banking industry, finance for 15 years, there are a lot of jobs that are heavy on manual data entry, that are doing a lot of spreadsheet analysis, where you're just taking data and building pivot tables and kind of manipulating the data you have. And there's a ton that are focused on very fast moving data points. Like if you're doing any kind of investments or trading, or I mean, you're tracking things down to the millisecond.
Yep.
A lot of that can get automated.
Speed.
We talked in a previous podcast, maybe 3 weeks ago or so, actually 2 weeks ago, but about how much knowledge work can be automated. If you're a knowledge worker, if you're doing mostly white collar work, you're at risk. And finance, I would say, is probably the biggest culprit in terms of things that a computer can do better than a person,
Yep.
especially when it's data driven. If you're doing manual data entry right now, or you're a junior analyst, I, I feel bad for you because there's not going to be too many jobs available over the next 2 to 3 years.
I think that's fair. Yeah, agreed. I know. So I was on one in my experience, which also runs pretty deep in the world of finance. I was working for companies like the Vanguard Group and things like that, which was obviously, mostly focused on investing. We were looking at back then, and this was, years and years ago, like years and years before AI, different ways to automate more because kind of the big value proposition with Vanguard was low cost provider. So we're always looking for ways to cut costs, which ultimately get passed through to our clients and our customers as savings and things like it. So we were extensively leveraging what the technology was capable of at the time. And at the time, I was part of what was initially referred to kind of as the robo-advisor project. I think it's since kind of transformed into their digital advisor. I imagine that has gone that much further even now with what AI is capable of. And it's really, you really think about like how far that stuff was able to be pushed then and the disruption that it caused and how much further it's likely to kind of go now. I've got a stat here which is pretty telling as well also, and it's a pretty big jump and relatively recently as well too in terms of the performance getting even better. But GPT 5.2, OpenAI's ChatGPT thinking beats the beats the human expert greater than 70% of the time. Now this isn't just an automation capability. This is the thinking model. So this is like the strategy, the work that you get, that the value that you often get from the expert. So this is talking about leveraging it for replacing that expertise from the folks who aren't just entry level. And that is expected to have pretty significant impact in the world of finance as well also. And then the last thing I'll share is that's a dramatic step up, almost double the previous benchmark from the level of just GPT-5. So from 5 to 5.2, it went from about 38% to now greater than 70%.
I mean, that's not shocking to me.
Yeah.
But so the old solutions, we're talking 10 years ago, 6 years ago, they're calling it robo this and auto that.
Yeah.
It wasn't really. It was algorithms that were carefully designed to come to a specific outcome every time and couldn't handle edge cases very well.
Hmm.
Now it is auto and robo. Now it is AI powered and it can think through complex scenarios that it hasn't seen before. Things that are either brand new or riding the edge of what it was previously capable of doing. And it can do it well. And you said 70% better than the
I think it is,
analyst.
yeah.
I mean, that's That's 70% for now. The newest versions of ChatGPT and Claude are coming out this week.
Yeah,
So let's see what those benchmarks are.
totally.
The message is, because I don't want to sound like I'm coming down on a whole industry, because I'm not. But the message is, if you're not using this right now, you are extremely at risk. I would call this one of the highest risk areas. Maybe I see that because I worked in it for so long,
So,
but you have to. You have to start thinking about how you can accelerate your own work and augment yourself with AI. And we talked a little bit, the most recent podcast, last podcast or two, about Anthropic Claude. That's probably the best one to use in a corporate setting. Lots of guardrails in place. I think it handles Excel spreadsheets like a champ. I spent 10 years, manipulating data in Excel and
same.
figuring out all the right equations to use. It's gone. It means nothing now. Not to say that that experience isn't good. It was great at the time.
Yep.
Claude can do it better than I ever could with one prompt. So
Yep.
start using it if you're not.
100%. Yeah, I was going to bring up the big push from Claude to provide that much value in Excel because I know we talked about that recently. A significant portion of what's done in like FinOps or financial services operations is typically done in a spreadsheet. So now that you have that to leverage,
Yeah,
a lot of that stuff that used to be done by people, pivot tables and databases or whatever, all that kind of stuff, manipulating these numbers, which is a key part of the finance game, right? Pretty much the vast majority, if not all of that, now can be done by AI. I think it goes further than that as well. And we've done episodes on other topics in other industries that are expected to see some serious disruption, like healthcare and things like it. And I think there's some comparisons to kind of be made here from the perspective of what these technologies are going to mean for how the work in the world of finance gets done, just like it's affecting healthcare and others. And so it's not just automating a lot of that busy work away. I think from a strategy perspective as well too, you can probably go a lot deeper, a lot further, a lot faster by gathering more of that context. If you're a financial advisor or
oh
whatever,
yeah,
if you're trying to spin up plans and do financial planning for your customers and your clients, gathering more of that context, putting more detailed plans together, running scenarios, all this kind of stuff. I think there's just a tremendous amount of things that he can do to help you with planning and forecasting, building those plans. So yeah, for sure, if you're not leveraging that now, it's probably something that you can really level up your game and improve your productivity by leaning into it a bit further.
exactly. And I mean, we're going to share after the podcast. You can go to the site, whataboutai.com, and we'll have guidance there for how
Yep.
you can better leverage this in your career. I think that's step one. Step two is once you have the tools and you have an idea of how to use the tools, it's getting accustomed to using the tools regularly. So when you start thinking through how to solve a problem, you still have to have creative problem solving skills. That's that still kind of sits with the human thinker. Right? You have to be able to think through how do I tackle this more broadly? What do I want the AI to focus on? But if you give it specific tasks to perform for you, it will.
And yeah, I mean, in terms of leveraging the tech for finance, I've done so myself recently, which I can share here also. And we geek out about as well too, because finance is a big part of our background. But I'm not a financial advisor. Neither one of us are. This isn't financial advice. But I have leveraged the tech in this way to help me with like my portfolio and the investments I want to make that's right for me and my family and all that kind of stuff. And it is kind of like having a financial advisor in your pocket. It's been really interesting the things that it can do and how you can leverage it
Yep.
because I've wanted to kind of balance my portfolio over time as I get a little bit older and wants to be a little more conservative, a little bit less market risk, whatever. So I will throw, uh, the ticker symbols and stuff like that at it, usually for funds because that's more of my thing as opposed a little bit less so than stocks. I'm very much a big believer of the world that the strategy that comes from Jack Bogle, the founder of Vanguard. So leveraging those exchange traded funds and things like it, but it's really cool to like compare and contrast different investment styles, different options. You're looking at like yields and prices and expense ratios and all this kind of stuff. And you could just, there is no limit to how much you can geek out about these things. And you don't need necessarily all the crazy expensive financial planning software, a lot of which is kind of gate kept away from the public and things like it as well too. So if, someone like myself or you or anybody can really do that with the accessibility the way it is currently with I imagine that's probably hopefully going to see, the more democratized access and even better service and value and whatnot for the financial advisors and
Oh
things
yeah.
like it that leverage this tech more for to help their clients.
Well, even if we have a lot of younger clients reaching out to us now, asking us if we can help them become day traders. I mean, yes, we could help you become a day trader, But the examples we keep hearing are like Polymarket. They're seeing people that are trading and making 10x their money and, you know, riding different waves in the market. And those things work. You can do those things. You can use AI to make educated decisions about those things, but it's not perfected yet. That's still kind of the Wild West. If you can get in on it now, if you want to do that, now's a good time to start playing around. Like, you know, take some funny money, don't invest your real money yet, and just see where it goes. And if you see a pattern that you found using AI, play it. Why not?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, there's tons of simulators and stuff like that out there if you want to like
Yeah.
play around with different scenarios. The other thing I found really interesting that I've tried to use it for as well too is like back testing, as in, for this year, if I had invested differently than I ended up actually investing, what would the results have looked like if I had a portfolio that was more in this direction or more in that direction? So it's really cool to kind of run those combinations and see what the performance elements look like. So
But
it
these are
really
all
looks interesting.
conversations that we would have had, or the people we're talking to would have had with their financial advisor.
Exactly right. Yeah, I think that's kind of one of the takeaways here is that you can get a lot more of that kind of value from this tech currently as a consumer, as well as I think that for the professionals out there and the clients that we work with, the tech can really help you kind of level up your game, be more productive, help more clients, all that kind of stuff. So better, scale the operations and stuff,
Yeah,
which is cool.
exactly right.
So I think that's pretty good for this episode. Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Every time you ask me that question, I'm like, oh, there's 10 more things I want to say, but we're trying to
That's
keep it
fair.
pretty close to 10 to 15 minutes,
Yeah,
so we'll cut off here.
need to cover enough topics. Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. We appreciate it.
Thanks all.